would like to call to order the regular council meeting for Monday, April the 9th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Merrill?
Present.
Mr. Steigel? Here. I have not heard from Mr. Curry. Mr. Berquist?
Here.
Mr. Lewis will be absent tonight. Mr. Ball?
Present.
Mr. Kozer?
Here.
All right, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from council meeting held March 26, 2018.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman, one correction.
Yeah, please.
Under 5E, discussion regarding the adoption of the Rolling Hills Park Master Plan. One of your sentences says that Mrs. Merrill agrees the plan should be adopted as the school district is moving forward. You left out the second part that I would like you to add. That was, but there are too many issues that are still undecided for it to be approved without more discussion, which will support my nay vote on the first motion. So if you'll please add that, I'd appreciate it.
Changes so noted. I already have one.
I think you already loaded it up. Thank
I
you.
was sitting there for a while, keeping your seat warm. All right, okay, we have a motion and a second and an amendment. I was not here for that meeting, so I will no vote on this. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So that would be 5-0-1.
And just for the record, I'd note that Mr. Curry is present.
Sorry I'm late.
Just
Couldn't find a space out there. What's going on? I thought I was, we're getting ambushed tonight or something.
Vietnam veterans panel discussion at the library.
I didn't know.
All right. Next item on the agenda is special reports, and there are none listed, so I assume there's none to discuss. Next one is audience comments. This is limited to a 5-minute opportunity to discuss an item that is not on tonight's agenda, so a non-agenda item. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and state their case? Seeing none, we'll move along. Unfinished business, there is none in that category as well. A new business, first item on the agenda, is award of a bid for the 2018 Peters Township Road Surfacing Program. This is an annual process that we go through. So, Mr. Lauer?
Yes, the 2018 budget contains an appropriation of $1,250,000 for highway maintenance, and that includes the road resurfacing program as well as the rejuvenator and crack sealing programs. The township solicited bids on Monday, April 2nd. There were 6 valid bidders. The low bidder is Youngblood Paving. Mr. Zamitis has reviewed those bids and is recommending that Youngblood Paving be awarded not only the base bid but the alternate bid for a total of $1,012,151.10.
All right. Any further discussion?
I did have 2 questions, if you would, Mr. Zamitis. I have no problem with Youngblood, and I'll be happy to approve that. But I had a question about, everyone knows the gas prices are going up and the oil prices. So do we have something in the will we have something in the contract about controlling the price increase potentially if asphalt goes up?
We, because we do pay for the majority of our programs, liquid fuels money, we have to abide by PennDOT specs, and there is an escalator clause in their specs. The way it reads, if the price of liquid asphalt per ton goes up by more than 10% from the time they bid it, and we put that number in their bid, it's published on March 3rd, I think. Every month it's published at the beginning of the month. So the base index is the one that came out in the beginning of March. But if it goes up by more than 10%, they're owed a price increase. If it goes down by more than 10%, we're owed a deduction on that. The way it works, I have the formula here in PennDOT. So it's on the liquid tonnage of asphalt. So the black stuff in the asphalt is the tar. It's the liquid. So there's a per ton price on that. It's usually around $400 a ton, give or take. So the actual tonnage of asphalt that they put down, you multiply that by the percent bitumen that's in that mixture, and there's a formula they have to come up with that. So we would owe them that. The only cap on that, if you read PennDOT specs, if the price of liquid asphalt goes up by more than 50% from the time they bid it, they have to stop and get our approval before they put down any more asphalt. So there's a cap, and it's only happened once in the 10 years I've been here. That was the first year I was here in 2008, of course.
Yikes.
Morgan Excavating.
Yeah, you remember it well, Frank.
Oh, yes, I did.
But that was an unusual year. That's a dramatic price increase over 2-3 months has never happened before that I've seen. So I don't anticipate it this year, but you never know.
Well, I appreciate your answer. That was what concerned me, the potential, because we just don't know.
Right.
I had one second question, and it was just about a clarification on your specs. And you talk about M-type inlets versus hooded inlets. And this is only my question because the inlets have a sharp corner point, and that's always worried me about if someone accidentally runs into that.
Right.
Or what's the difference between the two? Are you converting it to something rounded?
We have that. This is the first year we have that specific bid item for an inlet conversion in the contract. I know we've discussed this before, and generally the policy is, I'll even step back from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The township standard was always the hooded inlet. But with the wedge curbs, it's not really compatible. It's tough to work the asphalt unless you put a concrete transition in. It's just they get prohibitively expensive. So the new standard, as of like the past 15 years, is we only use the hoods in low points on the road and at the end of cul-de-sacs where they actually have a value. Where if the hood ever got matted over with leaves, or the hood could accept the overflow. On a straight grade, you don't have that because if the inlet's matted over, the water's just going to go straight down the road. So we've changed that standard, but we're left to deal with hundreds of these hooded inlets. So rather than replace them all, if there's an inlet that needs work on it, if there's a collapse or something underneath, we'll replace it with a non-hooded type M inlet. But if it's okay otherwise, we usually let it go unless it's an obvious tire popper situation. We've noticed a lot of them on radiuses where people tend to cut the turns. When we've done that, we've converted those. But that particular bid item this year is for a couple inlets up on Locust Drive. If you recall, that's the Juniper Woods Beacon Manor connection. So we looked at that roadway, and it is narrow and it is steep. So it was my recommendation that we convert those ones to just make the situation a little bit safer up there without people dodging inlets and stuff. So we have a specific line item for that, where we actually, the boxes with the hoods, they're actually 10 inches wider than a normal type M box. So we've created a spec where we build like a false wall and take the hood off and pave a curve over that. So.
Well, it sounds like you're taking the steps to change them over as you can. So
as we can,
answering.
right.
Thank you for answering.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the 2018, or award the bid for the 2018 Peters Township Road Resurfacing Program. Base bid and alternate A to Youngblood Paving LP for a total amount of $1,012,151.10.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 6-0. Next item is contract extension for the purchase of rock salt. We may need this in June, the way things are, under the SHACOG contract.
As council's aware, the township purchases rock salt through two cooperative purchasing programs. The one is through the South Little Area Council of Governments. That contract has a provision for a one-year extension. It requires the mutual consent of both the supplier and the municipality to extend the contract. Under the terms of the contract, the price of salt would rise with the CPI. So To put it in perspective, had that increase been in effect this year when we spent $246,000 on rock salt, the price of rock salt would have been $5,400 higher. So it's our recommendation that the manager be authorized to request a one-year extension from Cargill on the basis that that's contained in the Shaycog contract. It appears that Cargill is going to offer that extension, from best we can tell.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we authorize the township manager to request Cargill Inc. extend the rock salt contract for an additional year, commencing July 1st, 2018, and ending on June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 6-0. Next item is request from James Menelakis, owner of a 2.2-acre property located at the southwest corner of Old Oak Road and Route 19 for a departure from regulations concerning limitations on the height of a retaining wall.
So this is a request for a departure from the township's regulation on the height of retaining walls. Retaining walls under the ordinance are limited to 6 feet. This would require a wall that is at least 20 feet high for approximately 225 feet. And the reason why that is necessary is that on this particular property, which is sits adjacent to the building that contains Med Express and Chipotle and Old Oak Road, is that it steeply drops off. So what's being proposed is that a retaining wall be constructed to support the parking area and the location where this building would be. The Planning Commission has recommended the approval of the departure with 5 conditions. If in fact council decides that it wishes to grant that departure, it would be my recommendation that in addition that condition 5 be amended to state that the purpose is to screen the wall and that the plan is the landscaping plan be subject to approval by the township. And secondly, I would add a condition that says the construction access to the site be solely off of Old Oak Road by way of the intersection with Route 19 nearest the site. I think it would be very difficult to develop the site if you were coming off of Route 19 where you have the entrance in to that existing building. There is someone here from the representing the developer, and they can explain their rationale.
Paul, just so I understand, are you recommending that there not be a connection between the Med Express building and the site, just not access off of 19?
Just not construction access off of 19.
All right.
Hello, I'm Jessica Behringer. I work with Harshman CE Group, and we're representing Mr. Manalakis in this process. Like you said, the site drops off deeply off 19, and so we're proposing to put in the retaining wall in order to have a developable site that is marketable as well as developable. We are currently working on that access off Old Oak Road. That's part of the plans. When we initially had submitted it, it was just a quick submission because we saw that we needed to get the variance on the wall height, so that's kind of been our first focus. All of the grading plans are kind of in draft form at that point, but yeah, at this point we are doing it, putting in a temporary access for construction off of Old Oak Road, and that's where all the construction would be, so we'd be fine with that. Can I have a clicker? So you can see the existing conditions in this one. We went through, this is just a conceptual site plan. Like I said, it's not really fully developed. This permanent access is not currently in the plans right now. This would be, right where this is, it would be the temporary construction access, which would, this side of things would then be removed. They have an existing easement here for normal entrance. Once the building is up and operational, cars would be coming through and sharing a driveway here.
Can you clarify that again?
Sure,
Are you
sorry.
saying that you would create a construction access and that secondary access would not be left when the building is done?
That's correct, right now. For grading, this is potential in the future, but right now, and this isn't, like I said, this is a draft site plan.
Wouldn't you need some sort of right-of-way or an easement by the owners of the property
Here.
adjacent?
Yeah, that's in place, yeah.
That easement
I don't like, I'd be honest with you, I don't like that idea at all.
I don't think you can only have one way in. I think you have to have a way to get through. No other reason for emergency vehicles.
Well, in the traffic, the intersection you're describing, right at where Route 19 is in front of that express, is a right turn in, and I think that would be a very difficult traffic situation.
Yeah, so if you wanted to access that building coming down 19 from Waterdam, you would have to make the left onto West McMurray, then go around the PNC Bank, go in front of the Chipotle, and go that way, because that's your only way in. Of course, I guess if the access is from Old Oak, you're going to have to go down
No, you
and
could
wait
get
20
that-
minutes to be able to cut
Turn
it.
lane on where Old
But it's a
Oak
right,
is,
right, so I mean, you'd have to go.
Make a U-turn.
I think the biggest concern would be if you want to leave this site and go north on Route 19, you'll have to go completely through the adjacent site and
Right.
come out
Exactly.
on West McMurray Road, which I
Right.
think is a rather convoluted way to get out of there.
Which is a
The-
challenge.
I just want to pause and say that this is a conceptual site plan at this point. This isn't what we're not presenting the whole site plan for you for approval right now. We're focusing on the retaining wall just because we didn't want to go past that further right now without that in place first. So
But let me
definitely
just
hear
say
all the
that While you're
concerns.
thinking about that,
Yep.
I would not plan on an access on Old Oak Road. That is a terrible intersection today without any more traffic. You can't get out now, put any more traffic on there, and it's worse. And trying to turn left out of there is not easy.
Off of
today.
Old Oak.
Out of Old Oak. So I would say that that's an absolutely bad option.
For a permanent access off of
Yeah.
Old Oak over here.
Right.
Except the problem you have then is, like
Conflicting.
we said before, how are you going to get to it if you're coming from the north? That's the
I don't
problem.
know.
Well,
But I mean,
let's-
you're-
Yeah, I know, we're getting ahead of it.
Let's focus on the issue at hand, because
Yeah.
the issue is, if the retaining wall isn't an option, then the rest of it's rather
Gonna be
moot
relevant,
anyhow.
yeah.
That's right.
So if we could all please concentrate on our feelings about, now, the length of this wall, if I'm correct, is 200 and some feet,
That's correct. 280.
and how much of it will be over,
Oh, my gosh. Huge part of it,
I know,
I think.
how much will be over our standards, Ed?
The majority of it, yeah. The,
It says it's going to be at least 20 feet high for approximately 225 feet.
that's right. And then it tapers down on each side. It's
So it'll be
kind of
the
small
highest,
here.
it'll be
I'm not sure if you
23
have it
feet.
on your computer or not, but maybe, you know, near the beginning and the end, it might meet the standards, but the majority of it would be over. It's an extremely deep site there.
Oh, my gosh.
This whole wall, I want to point out, it would be below the grade of Route 19. This isn't going to be, any of it will be.
So from Route 19, it's not going to look like the Great China Wall?
You won't see anything. It'll be below grade.
Just when you're coming up Old Oak, you'll be staring at it.
You'd see it off Old Oak, yeah.
Is there any residential
Right.
back that way? No?
There's a house down at the bottom of the hill.
There's a bar.
A little bit removed.
Road there, right on the corner.
So your proposal is for 2 walls?
The proposal is for one wall. I put in here just so you could see what it would be to tier it, just so you could see that it's not really feasible to do so. With the regulations, you have to have the diagonal distance between the walls would have to be at least equal to the wall height.
Right.
So if you split the 23 feet in half, it's 11 and a half feet. And in order to do that, you end up cutting off a large chunk of your space. You end up cutting off, just grab it. So it's
Oh, I see.
And do we have anything similar to this in the township?
We have quite a few that are similar. We have one at Valley Brook,
that we all see.
The bank?
Zabo, the PennDOT wall.
Oh, okay, that wall.
There's a wall behind Max and Irma's. It's tiered, but it's 20-plus feet high. We have two walls behind the plaza where Starbucks is on 19. I can't think of the name of that
Right.
plaza. There's a wall behind there that is 20-plus feet high. And then the next plaza down where Franco's is, there's a wall there that no one can see.
What was the wall that, remember we did that, was that last year? And, oh geez, what's the?
daycare center or that?
Sheets, when Sheets was going to go in there, that was going to be big, and did we approve that? I don't remember.
We did not. We did not. And
But Sheets withdrew that.
Sheets was a little
It ended
different.
up coming back, the wall to build it was
Yeah.
like $3 million,
Yeah.
so they walked away.
Okay.
Because that had the road behind it.
Okay. So if we were to approve this, and they come back with a plan that has access in and out, ingress and egress, and we don't like, then what happens?
Well, the next step is if council okays the retaining wall height, then the next step would be to come to planning commission for a site plan approval. As part of that site plan approval, that's when we'll study traffic, ingress and egress, and make decisions based on what they're proposing.
Who makes that decision?
Planning commission.
And not us? Eventually us? Or not?
I don't.
No, that would be
Not
the-
come to council for final approval for a site plan.
Really? Okay.
Go to planning commission.
All right.
But I would think one of the things you could do, if you had a concern one way or the other with regard to that, it could become a condition of the departure.
And Ed, just to reiterate, there is an interconnect here with the property next door,
That's
Yes.
correct.
There's a-
and Mr. Manolakis is aware of that,
Yes.
and he's okay with that?
Yes.
When Chipotle PNC Banks developed that, that's a new requirement that we have, that sites interconnect. So that easement was put in place as part of the approval of the PNC Chipotle development.
Okay.
Mark, it's probably a question for you. If we have that interconnect with the adjacent property, does that affect the HMP, the number of trips generated, things like that?
I don't know, that's a good question. I wouldn't think it would change the use classification of the driveway. I mean, this isn't a huge traffic generator here if they're proposing office space. I'm going to say it's probably like a low volume or medium volume driveway. Yeah, there's different tiers. I don't think it would kick it up. But that's
Then
just,
I'm sorry, just to jump on that, would we actually get a traffic impact fee from him?
Yes.
Since we already
Oh,
have
yeah,
it?
okay.
Well, I'm just clarifying, so we would, based on what his.
yeah, the driveway access wouldn't matter. It's the number of new trips generated. I don't think it would be the difference.
And what is this is supposed to be an office building?
That's correct, yeah.
No retail on the bottom, nothing like that?
Again, the site isn't really fully developed, but at this point, it's just being considered for office space.
Okay, any other,
Well, at the end of the day, I don't see how this site ever gets developed absent this kind of wall. It's just
Right.
not going to happen. So it's either we approve this or the site just remains vacant into perpetuity. So I'll make a motion that we approve the request subject to the 5 conditions set forth in the Planning Commission memo, revising the 5th condition to say there'll be no construction access from Route 19. I also would amend the condition with regard to the landscaping buffer to state that the landscaping buffer below the wall will be of nature of evergreen trees and sufficiently stacked such that the view of the wall from Old Oak Road will be sufficiently obstructed.
Can we require that the plan come back to us, Paul? So
I'm going to tell you, I can't support this for that reason. So
There's a motion, I'll second the motion, but I do have one question. Probably either you want.
okay, we have a motion and a second Mr. Steigel has a question?
Yeah, regarding the condition of planting evergreens at the base of the wall, I mean, I'm looking at the grading plan, I wonder if that's going to be an issue, encroaching on the floodway. Again, Mark, any thought on that?
I mean, I know the conceptual site plan shows the wall a little bit outside of the assumed floodway there. It is an assumed floodway. I don't know if they could do a flood study on it to reduce that floodway.
It looks like he
But I
has-
know they have wetland issues down there and a sanitary sewer, so
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's really a viable condition.
I thought the wall was like 10 or 15 feet back off of where the floodway was shown. I mean, what does your drawing show? How far back off?
I think it's a couple feet.
But
Yeah,
looking
it's
at
not
the
very
grade,
far
though,
off
I mean,
it.
it's fairly steep there, hence the reason that
Yeah.
I'm going.
Well, if you plant the trees right up against the wall, I think you still have enough room to get out of the floodway.
If we don't have control over the final.
I think you're going to have, what's the answer? I mean, can we put a condition that it has to come back to us? Because, you know, I agree with what, you know, Mrs. Merrill said. I don't think that that's a real viable option for egress and egress to be the only one off of 19. And I also recognize what, you know, Mr. Ball's saying. I mean, I've been on that curve there, and
I come out of there every day.
you know, I mean, there's a lot of issues here. And I just can't, I know it's probably going to pass, but I can't support it unless, you know, we have some sort of control over that. I just don't think that's right.
Well, can we do
I can't answer that question.
I mean, other councils get preliminary and final site plan approvals. The way it's set up, that's what I asked Ed, is just what you said, 30, 40 years, your council has not taken review or approval of those site plans. So I think it's by ordinance. I'm not sure we can vary the ordinance by vote, but I appreciate what the board wants, and I actually support that. I think it should come back before, because there's other issues here.
it? Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of issues.
I mean, you could make it, arguably, you could make it contingent, you know, upon coming back for a final site plan approval. It's just not part of our normal, I'm not sure how that would go if you would vote it down.
Well, can we make the retaining wall contingent on having a second access off of, I forget the name of the street, is that Old
Well, that I think you can do.
I think, yeah.
That you
Then
can,
if there's an access over there, then I'm not in favor of it.
What happens if we just say another access?
Well, where's it going to be?
It's only one building.
Who knows, maybe we go out some other place, out the back.
There's a back behind the Med Express, there is a parking area. Is it feasible to look at a secondary
No.
access through there?
It is not.
I don't know.
There is not. The only other access is Old Oak. Period.
and Mr. Ball, you're concerned in making a left off of Old Oak?
I'm concerned of the traffic load, of making a left off Old Oak, and you know, it's Old Oak. When you come up that hill, there's a very steep hill when you come up to 19 on Old Oak. One, you can't see. The sight distances are lousy, and you know, when you look to the left down there, it's hard to see the traffic for one thing. And to make a left going out there, there's 2 lanes of traffic on 19 that you've got to go across. And it's difficult. It's not an easy turn.
Has there been any discussions about making that a right turn only out of there?
I think you'd have to.
You don't think you'd have to?
But then,
Then of
You're going to be funneling people all the way up Old Oak
Right, from,
to where it comes out of, you know,
By-
Old
by-
Sunoco Station.
Right.
the other
You're gonna make
option,
that left to come out down
is to
where
go the other way on Old Oak to, you know, to the other end where the traffic light is. And, you know,
So if you do like a do not enter coming off that,
and you know, and then you're contending with all the overflow traffic from, you know, people that use Oakwood as a bypass to the crossroads. You're just exacerbating that situation.
But if you force all the traffic to West McMurray Road, you have a problem there too.
You have a problem there. The problem is we don't need any more traffic there.
It's not an easy issue. There's a lot of variables.
I mean, the other option is for council to table that, maybe look at some of these traffic issues, so you can kind of put that ahead of this and see if you can come to some sort of idea that would, you know, with Mark and Ed or whoever, that could be palatable, and then vote on this.
Or give Mr. Smith the opportunity to find out whether or not you can condition an approval on changing the process contained in the ordinances that regulate the approval of site plans. I don't know whether you can do that or not.
I don't think you, I think your research, John, will find that you can't.
Yeah, that's
Unless we amend the ordinance.
Right, that's why I think if you do it in reverse, if you almost take this as somewhat of a site plan review and make that contingency, address what we're talking about. We just don't have enough information, I think, to make that continue. Like Mr. Ball's saying, he would be against that based on the knowledge that he has right now, unless somebody comes up with an option.
Sure.
Well, and it would be also helpful to know really what the ultimate use of the building is going to be. I mean, right now we're hearing that it's going to be an office building. Turns out to be retail. Obviously, there's going to be more traffic.
Well,
So, if you're telling me it's going to be like attorneys' offices, you and I both know nobody goes to visit attorneys, so the traffic's going to be low anyway. So.
Number of reasons why.
Exactly.
You also, and I don't know that we typically do this, but condition on what type of use would go in there. So in the future.
Which is to Mr. Arcuri's point that I'm with. I don't have a problem with the wall.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a problem with the wall, but I can see approving it. I just I am uncomfortable without knowing how this site plan will eventually come out. If we have no control over that concerns me.
Could potentially a reduction in size of the building make any difference? I mean, he's talking 9,600 square feet. Is he talking 2 stories, 3 stories? Is he talking?
2 stories.
2 stories.
2 stories.
If it was smaller and the amount of volume of traffic in there was reduced, would that make a difference?
Yeah, but
It's got to make the numbers to work.
It's not going to make his numbers work.
Right.
That's the problem.
Probably not.
You're also,
For the cost. You're right.
if you
Sorry.
have an exit on Old Oak, I mean, you also have the potential of people from other businesses that are using that as a shortcut to Old Oak to go back down to Oakwood.
Yeah.
So it's another entrance there, and
All right.
that is not a good place on Old Oak to try and enter Old Oak. Because it's right at a little bend at the bottom of the hill.
Trying to divert back to our original subject matter here, which is the wall. We have a motion, and we do have a second. It appears we can't make any conditions on it.
I still have an issue, condition, the landscaping issue.
What's that?
The landscaping issue I had with that, I'm not sure it's feasible.
I will withdraw the motion, and I will make a motion that we table this application pending the engineer's review of whether or not there is sufficient space between the proposed retaining wall and the flood zone for the placement of a landscape buffer, and also to give us an opportunity to review traffic issues and the feasibility of an access onto Old Oak Road.
I'll second that.
Anyone want to make a motion on the original subject matter?
Yeah, I will. I'll make a motion that we approve the wall with the 5 conditions as laid out by the planning commission.
Anyone want to second that? Hearing no failure of a second, we'll vote on the first motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 6-0.
Thank you for your
All
time.
right? Well, that was fun. Next, request from Thomas A. Robinson Family LP to establish a payment plan for the traffic impact fee owed associated with the Fire Hill Schoolhouse Preschool and Learning Center.
On the podium.
So as council is aware, Mr. Robinson is planning on renovating the old Bower Hill Schoolhouse and developing it as a preschool and a learning center. As a result of that, there is a traffic impact fee owed of $95,634. And what Mr. Robinson has asked is that he be given the opportunity to make that in installment payments with a $20,000 payment initially, and then payments in the future of $18,908 for the following 4 years. In exchange for that, he's willing to waive his right to appeal the amount of the traffic impact fee. And it's my recommendation that, in fact, we enter into an agreement with Mr. Robinson to establish that payment plan.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Mr. Lauer, I'm not necessarily opposed to this, I just need some clarification. So it's a 4-year term, and I presume this will be enforced whether or not the business is viable after 4 years?
Well, and one of the parts in my recommendation says that we need to make sure that the payments are secured in a manner deemed feasible by the solicitor, so that in fact we do receive those payments.
Okay. And will there be penalties for default then? I would imagine that would be written in also.
That would be something I would hope Mr. Smith could help us with.
Okay, and the last question, I'm not sure, there's 2 letters in the docket, one stated March, one stated April, and just someone needs to check the math.
Well, the reason why there's 2 letters is that when the initial letter came in, it has the information, it has the offer to waive the appeal. The second letter did not. It provided the payment schedule, and what's in front of council is both a payment schedule and the waiver of the appeal.
Okay. So the bottom line is the total amount is the $95,000.
623.20.
623.20, and it will be 4 years over the course.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That would be 5-1 approved. All right, next item is a request from Thomas A. Robinson family to exchange properties located along Valley Brook Road.
And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Robinson to explain what exactly it is they would like to do.
Do you have our PowerPoint?
I can read it.
As we get to our PowerPoint in regard to our presentation, I'll start off. Good evening. My name is Mike Wetzel. I'm with the firm Victor Wetzel Associates. Also with me tonight is Tom Robinson, Chris Packadelis, and Bill Anderson. And we're here tonight for what we call the Valley Brook Road property, and it's the land contribution to Peters Township and a land easement land lease proposal to Valley Brook Road LLC. Mr. Robinson is the owner of the Valley Brook LLC property that will be discussed here tonight. Before we talk about everything, first off, I want to introduce you to the existing site. As shown here, the property of Valley Brook LLC, Mr. Robinson owns, is outlined here in red. Right here, this is Valley Brook Road, West McMurray, East McMurray along and through here, and Brush Run in the blue. Mr. Robinson owns the property that's 9.2 acres in size and is located in the Valley Brook Road Mixed-Use Corridor District. Now, surrounding the site is a piece of property that's owned by Peters Township of 1.6 acres of land right along and through this section. Now, once again, to give a little bit more detail, we have the Arrowhead Trail that works itself here with the dash. There is the Peters Township owns the property here to the northwest, along to the site all the way up to the property line that's owned by Valley Brook LLC. This is where the existing trail parking occurs now. This is the future Rolling Hills park area and school off to the site, so there's connection down here to the trail. And then once again, relationship-wise, the municipal building we're at tonight and the Peters Middle School in regard to the overall site. So what we go into a little bit of the detail of the site. Once again, Valley Brook LLC with Valley Brook Road located along this frontage. We have Edgewood Drive West and its cul-de-sac right in through here. Rayway Road located right along and through this section. And once again, the 9.2 acres of property owned by Mr. Robinson through here with Brush Run, working its way through the site, and then the 1.6 acre parcel that's owned by the township. The reason why that's owned by the township right now is the majority of that site is used as an existing stormwater detention facility, really for the Edgewood Drive West. There's the inlets that are located through here that work their way down and then work their way into the existing detention facility right along through here. There's also an existing brick building located right through this section. And then other utilities occur, overhead electric line that works itself through this section, and then a sewer line that comes through here, and then some additional off-site sewers in through this location. Once again, with the Arrowhead Trail located right along the site, and once again, the future Rolling Hills Park property being in close proximity. And once again, the trailhead parking located right in through here with property that's owned by, that's Peters exempt property associated with the area. So, as you know, Valley Brook Road drops in elevation down to the creek, then comes back up to the trail location. Over the past several years, Mr. Robinson has really kind of manicured his property along Valley Brook Road, especially with the areas in through this section. Throughout time, he's kind of removed the kind of brush, the scrub trees and weed trees through here, and he does a relatively good maintained purpose of cutting the lawns in this area along through this section. This area through here has also been cleaned up by Mr. Robinson in regard to the weed trees, et cetera. So really kind of show the kind of the appearance we have. And lastly, we do have show the floodway area for Brush Run located here in blue, and the 100-year floodplain located in green through this section. So there are sections mostly on Mr. Robinson's property that occurred within the township parcel and through here, just a little bit long and through here and through this section. But in regard to looking at some of the existing conditions of Valley Brook LLC's property, as you probably see, once again, Valley Brook Road relocated through here, and this is looking up Valley Brook towards the municipal building area. You can see the lawn area that's been taken care of, the way the trees have been removed in regard to the junk or obnoxious trees associated with the site, kind of creating a park-like setting. There's a little bit further down the property, kind of the same view, Brush Creek located along and through this section, and then right along Brush Creek, looking up along through this section. The photos are taken right along the edge of the township property that's there right now. You can see some of the existing sanitary manholes, and once again, Valley Brook Road being a little bit higher up along and through this section. This is kind of the gravel access drive that's owned and maintained by the township. A lot of logs associated with it through this section, and then you can see the Arrowhead Trail located up along and through here. And this is just looking more towards the north. Once again, cleaned up, not so much of a lawn manicured system, but a very clean appearance associated with the other portion of Mr. Robinson's property. Now, in regard to the township property that's there of 1.6 acres, I'm sorry, it's kind of here and there. The access into the site through here, Valley Brook Road, this is the existing brick building that's right along here.
$260 restroom.
Through this section. Whoops. Once again, looking back up to Valley Brook Road and the view of the brick building and the condition of some of the site. This is the view down to the existing gravel access drive that's there. Once again, the Arrowhead Trail off to the left is really the park property associated with it. The front of the existing building. The rear of the building through here, and then this part back and through here is the existing detention facility that's there today. And this is kind of looking through the detention facility to the back of the brick building. There's a concrete channel in through here, and really the storm sewer that comes from the street above, actually Edgewood Drive, yes, west, it really occurs more off along this side of the property. And then lastly, along through here, some additional site photos. This is the sanitary sewer easement in the back of the site with Brush Creek located back and through here. Actually, this little tarp is now hanging from the trees if you happen to be driving by. So now in regard to the proposal that Mr. Robinson has, We're kind of looking at more of a 3-lot type of subdivision. Parcel A, which is located here in yellow, this will remain as Valley Brook Property LLC. In regard to this property, it'll be 6.8 acres. Mr. Robinson would then, like in parcel B, would like to contribute this 2.5 acre property to the township. Once again, it ties in with the township-owned property off here to the north, as well as along the trail, once again, Brush Creek. And then the last area we call parcel C, this is where Mr. Robinson is looking for a land easement or a land lease to Valley Brook Road from the township. Now, what we'd like to be able to do is really kind of take the condition that this land is in now, make it kind of look more like what's happening you saw in the pictures of parcel A. Come through, remove a lot of the brush, maintain the existing detention facility that's there. That's never the goal to remove that detention facility. It's always there that it'll be maintained, and really kind of clean up the site and possibly look at some type of lease or easement agreement to allow a small little development that could occur. Now, what we show here is once again the parcel C or the township property. This dashed area is where the existing detention facility is now. That is the existing brick building that's there today. Once again, the gravel access drive that's there as well today. Mr. Robinson would like to come through, once again, kind of remove all the trees and shrubs and debris within the property, remove the concrete wall that you saw in the photos, clean up the entire site, kind of redo the whole detention facility and kind of more make it a BMP, plantings in the bottom of it that would make it a little bit more attractive, as well as adding plant material that really can work within the detention facility itself. Kind of give it a little bit of an appearance overall, because once again, here's the storm pipe that comes into the detention facility, and right now the water just kind of drains along this edge and through here and right out to the Brush Creek via this inlet through this section. Now, really the question comes in regard to the kind of the proposal is the use of the existing building. Under the option that we're showing under this plan, Mr. Robinson would like to, A, rehabilitate the existing building with the possibility of adding an expansion out the back along and through here. The whole goal was to have some type of, we'll say, small cafe coffee shop associated with the site that would be able to be used by trail users as well as residents of Peters Township that are traveling along Valley Brook Road. Under this area, whether we have to work with the existing building itself or with an addition, we'd like to be able to look at that as kind of a phase one type of area possibly. Once again, the green area in through here is kind of plantings more at the top of the berm to give it a little bit more of a landscape appearance around the top. Really what we kind of look at is the master plan for the site. The true goal would, once again, having the coffee shop or the trail shop located within through here. Main goal would be, if it's permitted, is to really raise the existing building and put a 21 by 30 building approximately in its location or where it's at today. Maybe look at doing some kind of front covered porch, a rear deck that looks out over into the area after it's all been cleaned up. Front area in through here would be used for bike parking for trail use. Within that, there would be kind of a pump station for bikes, little mechanical things that could be put out for maintenance of the bikes located through here, walkway back to the deck area. So the goal is really kind of using what's there today or an expansion of what's there today at the same location. But we'd also then look at doing an asphalt drive or where the existing gravel is, ADA parking access over into the coffee shop, and then adding, really kind of working with the gravel and through here for additional parkings for a total of 11 spaces overall. Within this plan, Mr. Robinson would also like the ability to really kind of connect to the existing Arrowhead Trail through this section. So similar of the, I'll say the single family plan up the street, if you've noticed the bridge that crosses, it would be something very similar in its nature of crossing the Brush Creek along and through here, working a series of steps up to the trail, And you'll see if you have out there, if you do have a bike along the edge of the steps, you really kind of create more of a bike ramp associated with the steps, so you don't really need to pick up the bike. You just roll the bike down the degree of where the steps are, and then you have then the access not only to the coffee shop, but being able to get to the trail over along through this section. Mr. Robinson would also like to be able to kind of do a fitness trail more on his property along this section as part of the master plan. And once again, with parcel B being 2.5 acres of land kind of dedicated to the township in regard to their use for stormwater management that could be used for that section, or continuation of the property that they own right along and through this section. Really, the goal here is to still have the property owned by the township, but really the maintenance of this parcel will be worked out in regard to Mr. Robinson would take into account all maintenance associated with this property. That would include the maintenance of the stormwater detention facility, making sure that it's in proper working order, but also kind of keeping it in its neat appearance that's would be similar to his property off to the side. Once again, the blue represents the floodway, the green represents the floodplain area along and through this section. Once again, any plan that wouldn't come through with a coffee shop would still need to come in front of the Planning Commission and staff to be reviewed, but we wanted to show this as a conceptual idea of some of the goals that Mr. Robinson would like to do to really kind of improve that parcel, and once again, kind of make it a highlight of really Valley Brook Road that he has currently with his existing parcel area A through here. So once again, as we're looking at it, as we kind of highlight the area, parcel C, which is 1.6 acres and owned by the township, the existing parcel will be owned by the Peters Township, but Mr. Robinson is proposing that a land easement lease agreement between Peters Township and Valley Brook Road take place for the following uses. Oops. Valley Brook LLC would remove all dead and invasive trees, shrubs on the parcel. This would include the existing detention facility and the surrounding areas. Valley Brook LLC would create the same park-like appearance on this parcel similar to their parcel to the south, parcel A. Valley Brook would provide maintenance to parcel C to keep the same appearance as parcel A. This would include maintaining the existing detention facility. Valley Brook LLC proposes to rehabilitate the existing brick structure, create a coffee shop, cafe, trail stop, cafe for the patrons of the Arrowhead Trail and the residents of Peters Township. This structure could be rehabilitated, expanded, or a new structure constructed at the same site. The coffee shop cafe would be considered a limited counter service restaurant, which is permitted in the Valley Brook Road mixed use corridor zoning district. And the size of the building here would meet the parking size requirements that are needed. Technically, we showed 11. There would be 9 that would be required for a building of this size, as well as really looking at some of the outside table types of uses. Number 5, Valley Brook LLC proposes to use the existing gravel access drive and parking area for the patrons of the coffee shop cafe. Valley Brook proposes to construct a foot and bike bridge over Brush Run and step access to the Arrowhead Trail via both parcel A and parcel C. And Valley Brook LLC's master plan is to create a fitness trail along Brush Run. So really, once again, to kind of finalize, the goal would be for Mr. Robinson to maintain parcel A, give 2.5 acres to the township for their use in regard to their trails or stormwater, and then really look at a easement or a lease agreement for the existing parcel of 1.6 acres owned by the township. So glad to answer any questions that the board might have at this time.
Why do we have to keep that parcel? Is there some reason we have to keep that parcel?
Oh, I think you do have to keep that parcel because you have a township stormwater management facility on that parcel, and right now the responsibility for that lies with the township. I would think you would want, whatever you do, you'd want to be able to retain the ability of failing the Robinson maintaining that. You would have the ability to maintain it. Otherwise, I think you got a problem on your hands.
Well, that's what I like about this, is it's not a land exchange, it's just, he's donating the 2.5 acres.
And for that reason, the purpose of this being on the agenda tonight is to find out whether or not conceptually council is amenable to this type of exchange. And if they are, it's going to take Mr. Smith working with Mr. Robinson's attorneys to craft a document to actually cause this to happen.
Well, first off, calling that a brick building is an insult to brick buildings.
Actually, at first I thought it was a CMU block wall, but technically that is a brick. It's a very unusual brick that could never be matched.
Are we using that for anything right now?
No, that building's a remnant from the days when there was a ventilation unit on there for the mine. And that's what that building's, that was a mechanical building.
Ventilation mechanicals.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on what the benefit would be of the township acquiring the piece that Mr. Robinson wants to trade? There's a reference to our MS4 plan.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't
Oh,
asking.
Mr. Zamitis.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Probably in a better position.
I'm right through that line of vision.
Mr. Zamitis, I want you to tell me why it's important for us.
Well, we don't have any specific plans for it, but as a general statement, we've come to realize over the past several years with like the state ramping up all these MS4 and there's the PRP or the TMDL plan on Brush Run that I've talked about in front of council a few times, that eventually we're going to have to do some floodplain/stream restoration projects in this watershed if the state moves forward with enforcing these TMDL plans. So it's always advantageous to control that property near the stream. So in my mind, there may be a benefit here. I think, again, as a general statement, it's not a bad thing to have that property. We don't have any specific plans for it right now, but down the road we might.
Well, and I guess my concern was, and I don't know the regs as much as you, but when I read the initial ones, it sounded like the property owner would be responsible. So if it retains, the property stays in Mr. Robinson's control, whatever MS4 requirements exist, the property owners who...
No. With
we
regards
need to manage it, but they need to follow directions.
Well, with regards to the TMDL plans, basically what the federal government is mandating is that the local governments are responsible to control pollutants in that stream. However they have to, whether it's property that they control or whether property that somebody else controls. I mean, eventually, if we run out of properties that we control, we have to go to private property owners and say, hey, it's still our responsibility to fix this stream and reconnect the floodplain to the stream, but now we have to work with that private property owner to reach some type of easement agreement that allows us to do it, and inevitably that's going to cost us some money. So I think if you control that property, that eliminates that step.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I agree 100% with what you just described. I think if a landowner owns property, there's some expectation they're going to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, they're not supposed to do anything. The mandate is on us, not them.
Yes. We're charged with addressing pollutants in that stream by constructing features along the stream that address it both as a floodway and both in terms of the contaminants in the water. And having access to property along the edge of the stream makes that possible. Otherwise, we could be put in a position where we're going to have to acquire those properties to be able to do that.
Okay, maybe I didn't understand, and I apologize. I just need to clarify this.
Yeah, if the township made a mistake, the mistake was not acquiring this property.
Didn't we attempt to buy this property?
We did not attempt strongly to buy this property.
We attempted somewhat, yes.
We did a half-assed attempt to acquire this property.
Because I think, like...
No. The guy that originally
Are you allowed to say that?
was going to donate it. The guy that originally bought this wanted to donate it to the township, but he wanted to take a charitable deduction. And we told him no, because he wanted it, he thought it was worth 20 grand or something like that. And I think we turned him down. I don't think we ever tried to purchase this property.
And the
At
whole
least
idea
while I've been on here. But my question is then, should we also exact an easement along all of the property for the creek, just in case we need to do this plan at some point in time?
Do you mean on Mr. Robinson's property?
All of it.
Well, yeah, we might as well, what about everybody else who has property along here? What you've just said, Mr. Zamitis, is that we're on the hook for it all.
What do you mean at all? I'm not sure.
We're on
Anything
the
that
hook
amounts
for
to-
implementing a plan.
Right.
Acquiring this piece of property may, we're not sure, may help us implement that plan. I
Let me-
personally don't know that it's reasonable to ask Mr. Robinson to give up property.
So
he's
Mark,
acquired.
if I understand it correctly, a VMP would be acceptable to take TMDL and credits would be a riparian buffer.
Correct, some type of stream,
So this gives you-
whether it's a stream restoration or there's something that's similar called floodplain restoration where you reconnect the floodplains to the stream and stuff. To try to understand it, like if the numbers worked out that you needed to rehabilitate 1,000 feet of stream in Brush Run, what we would be charged to do, we'd have to look at the parcels we own with streams on them. If that only added up to 700 feet, we'd have to get an additional 300 feet from a private property owner. So that would be another step where we have to do that, not the private property owner. The onus is on the municipality. So now we have to go negotiate with the private property owner to control that stream corridor. With a situation like this, we already control it.
Well, you clarified something then for me, because I was really under a misconception that whoever's property was adjacent was responsible.
No,
You're saying that
it's-
as a municipality,
Unfortunately,
we have a
it's-
portion that we must.
It's an unfunded mandate, as you're probably used to by now. It falls on us.
Okay, I have another question, and forgive me for asking this, but this seems like a lot of going around when you actually own property where you could build your own building now. What's the advantage to doing it this way? I mean, you had, if I recall, you had a plan in place for a cafe at one point already developed. There were issues with the frontage. So what is the advantage of what you're, why are you doing this? I don't
To
even.
beautify the pond.
Beautify the property.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
But when I looked at the map that you had up there before, the parcel we're talking about that we own, the substantial portion of it is not in the floodplain.
Right.
Whereas the other parcels, especially the one that parcel B, is almost entirely in the floodplain, which so it has no use.
Oh, and it has the use in regard to what your engineer has said in regard to,
Right.
stream mitigations. And not only now do you have, two sides of a stream that have that ability to do that additional mitigation.
I think the fact of the matter is neither of these parcels have much commercial value because the parcel that the township owns right now has a stormwater management facility on it that can't be altered. So where you might be able to put a small building and a parking area there, you're not going to do extensive commercial development on that property because that pond has to stay.
Correct.
Well, and as a township, we don't do extensive commercial development. My other question about this, though, is if we in fact proceed, the parking is noted as 11 spaces, and then you're going to build in access to the trail, which really, I mean, it all looks very nice, truly. Do you think that it's going to, 11 spaces would be enough, or is there some future plan where there'll be additional parking? Because theoretically, we're concerned about the parking access to the trail by St. Petersburg. So we're looking at potentially losing that. I'm wondering is there some future plan? Is there another step after this?
Well, not necessarily for this particular parcel. Once again, we're looking at it a conceptual idea. We would still need to come in for, land development approval if this easement agreement or lease would occur. We could look at trying to expand that area, maybe look at getting a little bit more parking in some locations. But it's what we're trying to do as an amenity without creating a large building.
Paul, what do you need? Are we on board with this conceptually?
What I need is a consensus from council to proceed with the drafting of an agreement that would come back to you for approval at a later date.
I have a question. This is Merle, and I was talking about this earlier. A few years ago, we had a gentleman on Bunker Hill that came to us attempting to purchase open space there. And I think Mr. Smith, you came back and said that was...
There was a process, and I was just thinking about that too. that I think took us even into orphans court at some point.
It could have, I don't think we actually went.
But see,
We didn't, I mean,
No, but
But wouldn't that be different? Wouldn't that be different?
We're not,
We're not
he's not buying that property.
buying it.
We're just going to lease it.
It's a lease.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is there a similar issue with that? such
I'll have, and I think that's what the manager's going to ask me to take a look at. But the other thing, from a liability standpoint, there have to be some issues in terms of inviting people onto our property there. And from a bidding standpoint, do we just pick who wants to use the property? Do we have to open up for bidding to the public?
Yeah, I mean, when we did the gas leases, we put it out.
I don't know. I mean, that's the first I'm looking at this
but
tonight.
the difference between this and when you're dealing with open space is that with the open space, the people in that plan have an expectation to use it and have access to it. This is a stormwater management facility. There's not an expectation that you have use and access to it, except for the stormwater that is being discharged out of that plan. I would think that would make this different. The question of whether or not you can transfer a piece of property without some competitive bidding process that's a different question I think Mr. Smith has to address. But
well, and the question of a lease versus an easement,
right, I don't know what
two different
yeah.
things.
If I may address council
The
for a
court,
second.
sure, come
My
on.
name's Chris Passelis, and I represent...
Come up to the podium.
Yes, I'm sorry. I represent Mr. Robinson and his related entities, and wanted to simply address the issue of the lease versus the easement. As a practical matter, if we were just simply agreeing to take over the management of the detention pond, it would be, I think, as simple as just exchanging our property for a permanent easement that is subject to our obligation to continue to maintain that area, the detention pond, in a manner consistent with the terms of the easement. When we start talking about separate uses, those involve different legal rights that I think would have to be subject to some form of a long-term lease agreement. Because there you're talking about legal interests, acts, ingress, egress, what happens if somebody slips and falls, what happens if we're going to build a structure there, who is the applicant, and what right do they have to make that application. And I think those things would fall more in line with an actual lease agreement. So I do believe that for ingress, egress, standard terms and conditions related to the use of the property as it is in maintaining the detention pond and swapping our lot for the right to beautify and maintain this lot, I think we could make it something as simple as an easement. But when we go to that next step and start talking about structures and uses like that, we would have to have, I think, a separate instrument that would be the lease. Or a license, something that would represent the legal interest beyond simply the use of the real surface area of the property.
But I think that is not the question in front of you. The question in front of you is simply, does council wish to entertain this type of arrangement? And if so, will you authorize the township solicitor to do the research necessary to be able to bring something back to you for action?
So you just need a consensus?
Yes.
So I can tell you, I would not be opposed to moving forward. And I don't think anybody else here would be.
I think it's a win-win-win for us.
I have no problem with the solicitor investigating this. I'm not sure it's a win-win yet, because I think there are a lot of issues that need to be ferreted out and very clearly decided.
Okay. So my
That's my opinion.
sense of council is that we're going to at least proceed to draft a document that would implement what has been suggested here tonight.
And how we can proceed
Yes.
forward.
Correct.
Yes.
Or whether we can proceed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and to come back if there are issues. I mean, there are a lot.
Although that agreement has to come back for council for approval.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time
Thank you
this
very much. All right. Next item on the agenda would be payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the payroll and bills, find them to be in order. I make a motion that we approve the payroll and bills.
Second.
Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 6-0. Correspondence.
Ryan Seacrest, hey?
In your docket is a piece of correspondence for the Clermont Municipal Authority to the Department of Environmental Protection, asking that the taps be restored to the Clermont Municipal Authority upstream communities.
Has that happened yet?
I don't know that it's happened yet. Given it's gone, has to go to DEP, I don't think that's something that's going to happen in a day. But I would think it would happen quickly because the limitation on taps was never mandated by DEP. It was requested by the Clermont Municipal Authority.
Okay.
Related to that, Mr. Lauer, have we had any response from the CMA to the letter that was sent with all the conditions that we had and all the requirements?
All those conditions were accepted, and that's why the Clermont Municipal Authority wrote that letter.
Okay, I didn't know that they had actually acknowledged and accepted. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
There's no motion.
no,
Is there a motion?
No. All right.
I'm just
All right.
agreeing with
There we
you.
go. All right, miscellaneous.
This Thursday, the Traffic Improvement Advisory Committee will be meeting for the purposes of updating or making a recommendation to council with regard to updating the traffic improvement program. We are suggesting that there are 4 items to be considered. The first is to amend the capital budget to include the high school and Park Road as a qualified project. The second is to include the Water Dam Galley Road intersection. The third is the Valley Brook Road and Bebop Road intersection. And finally, the Valley Brook Road Friar Lane intersection. In addition to that, we're going to suggest that the committee consider changing the boundaries of the districts. The way this traffic improvement program works is there are 2 traffic improvement districts. For the most part, it is divided by East McMurray Road. So any project that sits along East McMurray Road right now can be funded from either district. We're going to suggest that the district boundary be slightly modified by going up and capturing the new high school Park Road. And that way, money from both districts can be used for the construction of that roadway. Perfect. So that should help. The fee has not been adjusted for
2012.
yeah, and we're suggesting that there be a minor adjustment to that fee to raise it to $1,500 per unit. And then finally, we've had a number of these issues with regard to the appeals process. When you read the language that's in our ordinance, it mirrors the language in every other ordinance in Western Pennsylvania where there are traffic improvement fees. And that's not because that language is prescribed by the state act. It's because the same attorney drafted the ordinance for all municipalities, and it doesn't read well. What it says is you have the right to appeal up to 18 months. And what we're suggesting is that it needs to be changed so that you cannot file an appeal to 1 year after the final unit is occupied, and then it gives you a window of 1 month to file the appeal rather than to leave this open-ended. So the act does seem to imply that an appeal process is necessary, but the way it's worded right now, I think works against the fair application of the program. So there's going to be a discussion about this Thursday. The act requires that there be a public hearing by the committee, which will occur a month later, and then out of that will come a recommendation to council, which hopefully mirrors what you see there.
I have a question about adjusting the fee. If I sort of understood, I thought I heard Mr. Zook say that the last time the fee was changed was
2012.
2012?
We implemented traffic impact fees in 2008, updated it in 2012. This will be the third.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is there any reason, like, why we can't tie the fee to the CPI or something like that? I mean, we're losing money if, you know, we haven't looked at something in 5 or 6 years.
But see, one of the things that's going to change, this process, this program needs to be looked at on an annual basis, and that has never occurred. And so one of the things we're committed,
start doing that.
we're committed to is looking at this on an annual
All right,
basis.
all right.
All right.
This is what I was interested in. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah?
you skipped the minutes, and I had a few questions.
Pardon me?
You skipped the minutes, and I had a few questions. So
It
when
was,
you're,
you went from 7 to 9 instead of, you didn't go to 8. Here, on the agenda, here, 8 minutes.
Oh, the minutes.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's okay.
All right.
I don't have any questions, but
I had a question related to Park and Rec, too, for that. Apparently, our new soccer building was vandalized in February. It says in the minutes of the meeting.
That's correct.
Do we know what happened, or do we know yet who did it? And is everything okay now?
Everything's fine. I mean, it was cleaned up. From what Chief Grimes described, some kids broke into it and sprayed a fire extinguisher all over the place. So the contractor went in and cleaned it up.
is there lighting back there?
In the building, well, there's some sconces on the building and then some interior lighting, yeah.
Okay. I was there last Wednesday, because I thought that's when the ribbon
No, it
cutting
was
ceremony
before.
was. And I got a private tour by whoever was there. I can't remember his name off the top of
The
my head.
vandalism was before we took ownership of the building. It was under the contractor's watch, so.
It's very nice in there, by the way.
I think so,
All right.
yeah.
Anything else on the minutes?
Two questions. PTSA, in the minutes, it says they're behind on their schedule. So not for next meeting, but for a future meeting, could we have another update?
Sure.
And then last, on the cable, Mr. Boney was talking about looking for an update on the franchise agreement with Comcast. Usually in the past, we've engaged a consultant.
We have engaged a consultant. There will be a meeting. The franchise agreement is actually up with Verizon first. There's going to be a meeting of the consortium in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to begin that process.
Okay, just wanted to check and see if we were doing that again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
All right, we've already done, anything else under miscellaneous?
Yes, one other thing is next Monday we have a meeting with the school board. The purpose of that meeting is going to be twofold. One, we committed to reviewing the proposals with regard to the intersection of East McMurray Road and the park property. In fact, one of the things I'm going to suggest to you we need to do is we need to name that road, because we're having, we keep having to describe this as lots of different things.
Rolling
It's
Hills
gotta be-
Road. Should be
it seems
Rolling
to me
Hills Road.
Rolling Hills Drive is what it should be, but we need to come to an understanding about what that
Money
is.
Pit Highway.
Could be too. So we're going to talk about that. And one of the things, and we're going to do that this meeting as an executive session item, because we're going to talk about this, and it may involve the acquisition of property, and therefore we're going to do it as an executive session. But also, we're going to talk about the school resource officers and what they're proposing for the upcoming year. And school security items are eligible as an executive session item. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this tonight, because this is what we're going to talk about next week. But the one thing that I believe is noteworthy, and I think the thing is with both this intersection at East McMurray Road and the intersection up at Center Church Road, we should do our best to make sure that whatever we implement is the best possible solution, because we will not go back and visit this again. Once it's constructed, it will stay that way. And I know Mr. Lewis has been a very strong proponent of an intersection with a traffic signal, and his argument has always been what happens when school's not in session. Well, I think the argument for the traffic signal is even stronger. What happens when school is in session? With a signalized intersection, you can maintain fairly high levels of service. If, in fact, you go to the roundabout, what concerns me is that during events, the roundabout doesn't handle traffic as well. And what happens, if you think about the school, there's an event 2 times every day where you're dumping just tons of cars through there, and the service level actually drops to a C. If there's an argument against a roundabout, I think that's what the argument is that it doesn't handle those events, large numbers of cars being dumped out over a short period of time as well. HRG is going to be here. They're going to go through the whole analysis. I've already provided this to council in the form of an email. We'll send it back out to you again. But we'd like to be able to walk out of that meeting with a clear understanding that we can give direction to HRG about how to proceed. The other thing I said was that we are going to talk about school resource officers. The school district administration has engaged the chief and myself in a discussion about what they would like to see in the schools. Of course, to a large extent, that decision will be driven by the school district because there's real expense there. It does, however, impact the township depending on how we choose to implement that. So we're going to have a discussion with them about that as well. So
Thank you.
that's going to be 7 o'clock here.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here.
Not 7:30, but
7:30.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here.
And my mom will provide the cookies, so.
And we put a time
Just
limit
enough
on
for
this.
township.
I don't want to spend I don't want to be here at midnight. I mean,
We can attempt to do that because I'll be honest with you. To me, particularly with regard to the roadways, I think you can come to a conclusion pretty quickly about what we ought to be doing. So,
Okay.
Well, I was surprised that the cost for the roundabout was so much more.
Is Mr. Lewis going to be
well,
here?
one of the things to keep in mind when you're looking at these costs, because they're not included, is any property acquisition costs associated with either of these. So, and when I say property acquisition costs, I'm talking about releases. So to the extent that there are releases needed, that's not factored into any of this, and that's an unknown. But we're going to talk about that more next week.
All right.
Is Mr. Lewis going to be here? Or is he going to know about this meeting?
He knows about the meeting. He's thanked me for sending him out the same information that you have received. I hope to get some input from him before the meeting, but I think I clearly understand where he's at.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Just
Anything else?
One last thing real quick.
One on off the presses from
Yeah. There is Just About Farms has an approved grading plan. The plan itself has not yet been approved, but the grading plan has been approved, which gives them the authority to go out and begin the grading on that property. We just wanted to let you know that, so that in fact, people aren't surprised when earth begins to be moved out there.
And I'm glad you did, because I was going to ask you why all the equipment was sitting up there.
Yeah.
So now you're saying that they will be beginning, and I imagine they'll demolish
The house up top,
Yeah. And this is, I won't say that this is the normal path, but this is not an unusual path.
I got to clear. All right.
Yep.
Is that it?
That's it.
You want to sneak something else in here?
I just want to talk to you 2 seconds afterwards about the couple personnel issues.
All right. Anybody want anything for the next agenda? No. All right. That being said, this meeting is adjourned.